Hey YouTube, I'm here to show you a quick video on how to remove the powertrain from your C5 Corvette. Mine's a 2001. You remove the bolts from the rear upper control arm, your shock at the top here. I left all those bolts inside to ease myself. For reinstallation, there's a connector up here that you need to disconnect. There's the e-brake cable, which is pretty easy to remove. There's that connector. You make sure your e-brake is disengaged, and you can take the e-brake cable off of the hook here, and it goes through this tube. You push down these little tangs and it comes right out. I left my mufflers installed on the frame, and I hooked them up to wherever I could. The e-brake cable, there's a stud up there that you have to remove for these brake lines. I left the brake lines on the car. Same thing on this side. Upper control arm nuts, bolts, the shock bolts here. There's a ground that you should disconnect up here with another one of the cables, because this portion of it comes down with the powertrain. Disconnected a few things, but relatively not a whole lot in the back. There's a bulk connector right here that with the transmission harness that you need to disconnect because it stays on the frame right here. You have to take out the tunnel cover for the torque tube. While you're inside the car, you need to remove the shifter. And here's the shift rod. You have to make sure the shifter's off and disconnected from the shift rod, because it's going to look like this when you're done. To the engine, I removed my long tube headers. They were a little difficult to get out, especially on the passenger side, but all in all, not terrible. Let's see. You have to remove from the steering rack the bolt here and the coupling. I left that attached up top. On the front here, same thing. You have to remove the bolts up here for the upper control arm. This is how I left my shock absorber. I removed my intake. I really wanted to remove my intake because there's a few things that I couldn't see while it was installed on the car, and I didn't want to snag anything on the way down. Let's see, just to give you a view right here so you can see for yourself what you may or may not need. Again, I left the brake lines intact. Here. What I did split it up top from the ABS connector, from the ABS unit here. Disconnected here. You could disconnect it here, but I had a what's it called? A line lock connector right here that was easy to remove, so I just removed that. I left the radiator installed. I've seen a lot of videos where guys are taking the radiator out. I think maybe because they're removing it from the top or giving themselves extra access. I didn't need to do that. I left that there. What you should do is remove the right front fender. I didn't. I partially removed it in order to give me access to the engine control unit right here, because you need to remove the connector. You got to remove the battery. You got to remove the, let's see. You've got to remove, sorry, I've got a bit of a mess here. You've got to remove the fuse box. There's 3 connectors there, all with 7mm bolts back there. I took pictures of everything, so I'll know how it goes back together. A lot of stuff I did remove from the engine before bringing it down. There's a little tube right here that comes off the intake that receives vacuum for what I'm about to show you right here. Let's see. There's a little vacuum accumulator here, little vacuum reservoir. Anyways, the point is I needed to remove that from the back of the intake, and it snakes down and connects right to the bottom of this. That piece of vacuum line needs to be removed because, let's see if I can find it. Look like it came down, here it is, on my main engine harness. On mine it was attached and within the loom of the main engine harness. So that needed to come down. I was unaware of that while I was trying to take this down. But I figured it out before I started removing the powertrain. There's that. What else can I show you? Let's see. The air conditioning compressor, I took mine out. Left the connectors up top. I didn't see a way for me to leave it up there while I was juggling all of this. To get my long tube out on the passenger side, I did have to juggle with the starter just to move it in and out as I manipulated the long tube to get it out of the vehicle. That one was a little tough. There's a ground point right here that I was able to gain access to through the long tube. That needs to be disconnected. What else? Clutch cable. I have a quick disconnect here, which was great for me. Remote bleeder that I have here. All good. What you really need to do is you need to make sure you have a solid setup. If you don't have a solid setup for taking this down, you're gonna have a hard time. I'm sure everyone has different things that they do, but this is the one that I'm using. It's actually pretty nice. I'll be able to lift the engine up off of this and be able to work from there. I left the power steering rack in, took the water pump off, took the alternator off. Let's see, took a decent amount of things off, but it really wasn't terrible. If you've got some time, you can tackle this. All right, here's a view all the way around in case there's something that you want to see that maybe I didn't talk about or I forgot to mention. There's wires and the loom. The transmission harness goes from the rear all the way up to the front here, and this right here, it goes up under the battery box. So again, you need to take the battery out, the battery box out. I would really suggest removing the right front fender. The engine harness, here's the fuel injector connectors, ignition coil connectors. A few grounds you need to look out for. But here's a view of it. I hope this video helps you. I myself wanted to see a walk around video of somebody doing this, and I got a few hits on YouTube, but I wanted to make my own video and show you maybe something that you didn't see on other videos. There might be a few things that I might not have needed to take off, but this is my first time pulling this thing down. So there's that. Looks like from the brake booster, my setup is a little bit different, but essentially you're removing from the brake booster the vacuum hose. You see right there. You're moving the vacuum hose because that leads to the rear of the intake, and that's difficult to take off. All right, thank you for watching. I'm gonna get started on removing this engine.